Hello Animorphs fans and welcome back to the Animorphs Reviews YouTube channel. Today we're doing a review of Animorphs Shattered Reality. In the background here I've got video of myself playing the game. If you're interested in watching me playing the full game, it's a 5-part playthrough, I believe, 4 or 5. It's in my Animorphs games playlist, or just type in Animorphs Shattered Reality onto YouTube and you'll find it there within the first few results. Let's talk about this thing here. The picture on the front is basically the same as the Know the Secret PC game, which is a completely different game, which to me is very strange, because I initially thought that they were just the same game on different platforms, but no, it's a completely different game. It is essentially I'm no like a proper gamer, so I don't know the jargon. I'll describe it as I think it should be described. It's like a 3D platformer. So you're platforming along like Mario, and then suddenly you'll go that way or that way. So rather than just go do 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 do, you go do 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 or do 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 do. That's gamer jargon. You have to navigate a series of levels in a linear fashion to get from point A to point B, and point B is you beat Visser 3, who is the final boss of the game, and that completes the game. So pretty bog standard thing. When was this released? It was like year 2000. Yeah, year 2000. So pretty bog standard, I think, for games of that era. Hey look, it's me. Get back to the freaking gameplay, you moron. It's mostly these challenges, but at the start of that video you saw there was a bat fly through level. In these levels you have to again go from one point to the other, but it's more open to your movement, so you're flying around. They're all fly things, so you can be a bat, dragonfly, or a dolphin underwater. So you got more freedom of movement, and you just got to navigate a line through to the end. It's partly a fighter game as well, so you're spending a lot of time fighting alien enemies, ranging from your normal Hork-Bajir through to misspelt in the instruction books, Skrit-Nar, as the book likes to call them, Skirts and Nar. You also fight completely new aliens like Ka and pterodons, which I thought were dinosaurs, and they probably actually are. Why they're in this game, I don't know. We'll get on to that. If you know anything about Animorphs, you should know the basic story. So it's all about this group of teenagers that get the power to morph. There's a team of 6, 5 to begin with and then 6 shortly after. And they have to fight an alien invasion. And it's led on this planet by a chap called Visser 3, who ends up being the boss you fight at the end. What happens through the books does not necessarily happen here. Why? Because it's a shattered reality. That's the name of the game. And why? What is that? The story of this game is that Visser 3 has shattered reality. He's got these big green crystals. They look like time crystals from Time Splitters, if you've ever played that game. These big, not so much big, but these glowing green crystals. And he places them into this MacGuffin machine, which causes time to shatter in some nondescript way. And that allows the game to basically do whatever it wants. So you, as the Animorphs, start in the entrance, which is, we don't even know what it's the entrance to, but it leads down to an underground layer filled with lava fields. And then you move on to the sea, where you go as the dolphin, onwards to places like the gardens, the city, a bat cave of some sort, underground subway, the swamp, and eventually you end up in some weird alien building with Visser 3 at the end, where he's guarding the MacGuffin time machine thingy, which I suppose you fix. It's not very well explained, and there are not many cutscenes in this to explain what's going on. Even the opening cutscene where you get the initial, this is Earth, Visser 3 is a bad guy and he's doing a bad thing. Even that just leaves you more confused than ever, because it just says, time has been shattered. It's up to the Animorphs to save the day. Right. So each level, every single one apart from the finale, requires you to get from one end to the other where the time crystal is, and you have to navigate many obstacles, normally as a human, which is a fatal flaw in this game. You've obviously got to navigate the aliens who you have to battle. That's where the morphing comes in. So when you approach an alien, the game will force you to turn into your battle morph. Jake's is a tiger, Cassie's is a wolf, Rachel's is the grizzly bear, Marco's is the rhinoceros for some reason. You also got to jump over things. There's lava fields, there's lagoons of weird alien water, there's just ledges you can fall off. You're on top of large construction sites that you can fall off. It's very similar to any given platform where there's just a number of random obstacles essentially that you got to get by. So you spend most of your time as human, jumping through these massive hurdles. Like here you got the big propellers that I got killed on there and probably got very upset about. So you're not in morph very often, and each character only has the one morph. And you can't play as Axe or Tobias, Axe being the Andalite character and Tobias being the Hawk character, who appears quite frequently in the intro video and at the end of the last cutscene. You can't play as either of those two characters, so you're restricted to the initial four. And probably for very good reason, because think about it, each of these levels, like this one here, could be completed in probably 20 seconds if you were allowed to use Tobias. It's probably one of the most frustrating parts of this game, because if you know anything about Animorphs, you're looking at this thinking, why don't we just morph Bird, or why doesn't Tobias do it? Because all you got to do is get from point A to point B. Rather than jumping over all these ledges and going under things, why don't you just fly? Because then there's no obstacles in the way. Fly around. Well, I got freaking Kevin the Teenager on the screen. Like this part here. Instead of jumping on these ledges, you just fly. You're done. It doesn't make sense in Animorphs. I'm sorry. So there isn't much plot to speak of. It doesn't feel that much like an Animorphs game because of the limited morph use. You can't really do anything. You have to forgive it a little bit because it was made in the year 2000 and probably on a low budget. We're not going to expect AAA game stuff here. But at the same time, it needs to be more consistent with the lore, in my opinion. Let's face it, the only people who would have bought this game were probably Animorphs fans. Even fans of the TV series would see this probably as a disappointment in terms of your freedom to do Animorphs things. So it's no wonder this game would have failed or gotten bad reviews. It just doesn't appeal to anybody. What about gameplay? It's pretty bog standard for the most part. There's nothing really special about it. There's nothing particularly offensive about it. The worst part of it is the jump function, which at times seems completely random, and sometimes platforms deceive you. Like there are times when I've jumped onto branches and just fallen right through it because I wasn't like straight in the middle of it. So the jumping mechanics are probably the most frustrating part of this game. Some parts of it, like the part where you got multiple crushers and you got to run through them all, it feels like they're random. So you can't find the pattern, memorize it and use that to your advantage. It's random every time, which was very frustrating when I played this. There's nothing special about the gameplay, even the morphing. So you've got the 4 different battle morphs, but they're all the same, effectively. They all have the same speed. I mean, some of them feel clunkier than others, but I think that's just because of the way they're animated. Like Marco's Rhino, for example, just doesn't feel as accurate because it's got a really small head, but a really massive body. Apart from that, they're basically exactly the same. There's no difference. Add to that, yeah, you've got the choice of 4 characters to start each level with. Does it make a difference? No, not really at all. You even have to choose which characters you're going to use before the bat, dolphin and dragonfly levels, which is completely arbitrary because you don't see any of those characters and you just play exactly the same. It goes to show me that they probably didn't pay attention to details in this game, which brings me on to what I would consider a laziness aspect. There are details in this game which show you that there are some book readers amongst the people who program this game. For example, some of the aliens you fight are aliens like the Howlers, the Escort, Geds, which are only in the book series. The characters on the front and in the game as well are all based on the TV series designs, so it's almost a blending of the two. Now, of course, some of the levels you visit are places like the gardens and the construction site, which is part of the city. But yeah, you're in a big construction site, which is relevant to the Animorphs. But once you dig past those initial bits of, oh, that's Animorphs, there's nothing there. There's nothing. The gameplay doesn't, as I've mentioned, doesn't feel very Animorphs. Each has one morph. Each Animorph has one morph. You can only use 4 of them. And they're all basically the same character but with a slightly different skin. The plot is hollow with really nothing in it, and it's got this whole time crystal thing, which again has nothing to do with the book series. There were a great chance, put it this way, in this game you've got Escort and Howlers. Any Animorphs fan, what's your first thought there if you're in an Animorphs game? You'd think the City of Beauty, which is the Escort homeworld where you meet the Howlers and the Escorts. You'd think, oh, brilliant, I thought this when I was playing the game in my playthrough. I thought, oh, are we going to get a level on the Escort homeworld? That would have been brilliant. Rather than this level where you're walking through some weird factory. It would have been so much more rewarding to us Animorphs fans if you'd just given us the City of Beauty. Wouldn't it? But no, they didn't do that. If you look at all these levels, it almost looks as if they just had a bunch of stock items and melded them all together to form these levels. So, like here, you got these factory-like things, big metal bits. They look like they've probably just been taken from another game or somewhere else and shoved into here. Like they didn't want to make new things. They didn't want to design their own levels. They just stole the basics from somewhere else, which is very disappointing, and to me it just stinks of laziness. That plays into the idea that this was indeed a cash grab, just a way to get Animorphs fans to throw a bit more money in there, which is a shame. It is a shame, because let's face it, it's not a great game. It can be fun. For example, my favourite level was the bat level when you're going through the subway. That was actually quite fun. I did enjoy that. Some of the bits in these levels are fun as well. Mostly it's just very frustrating. Is it better than the other games? Well, I haven't actually played Know the Secret yet, so I can't compare it to that. I've played the Game Boy Color game. Is this one better than the Game Boy Color game? Yes, it definitely is. It's in pretty much every single way. The only way it might not be is that the Game Boy Color game at least had some level of story to it. I mentioned laziness. The whole shattered reality or time crystal thing, again, points to laziness, because all you're doing is saying, aha, now the world is completely random, which means you can just put whatever you want, which allows you to put these levels with stock stuff in it, which seems lazy. At least the Game Boy Color game tried to put a consistent plot in, an actual plot, even though it's extremely basic and a bit confusing at times. That's the only way that the Game Boy Color is superior. Every other way, this game is better than the Game Boy Color game. What are the biggest positives of Shattered Reality? Oh dear. It put our favourite, or 4 of them, 4 of our favourite characters in a video game format, which at times could be fun, and sometimes they'll say their catchphrases and you're like, ah, that's the catchphrase. And it gives us the gardens in video game format, it gives us the construction site. You can see how frustrated I got, by the way, in the background. Yeah, go watch that, by the way, if you haven't already. I did have a blast playing these games, which is, again, yeah, that's a positive. I had fun recording myself acting a complete tit while playing these games and crying a lot. We got a new design for the various alien races. They weren't particularly good designs, but it was nice to see them moving in an animation of sorts, even though it was very limited. And unlike the TV show, by the way, you remember the Hawk Bajir in the TV show? And it was just the that sound. This game gave them voices and voice lines, which to me was like, oh. So this game, yeah, it's mostly negative, but at times you get that little kick of, oh, Animorphs in video game format, and it gives you a couple of new things. It's fine for those little moments, and it's good to look back and laugh on how, let's face it, shitty the game was. It's like a lot of things Animorphs, it's underwhelming, but it's got charm to it. Look at some of the weaker books of the series, even the weakness. It's got the book, The Weakness, book 37, even that one I look at and think, you're charming, in some way you're charming. And I think that this is along those lines. That is Animorphs Shattered Reality. If you haven't played this yourself, I'm going to put a link in the description so you can go play it yourself. Let me know what you think of this game. Also, I'll leave links to go watch the playthrough for this game. I'll link you to episode 1. Please go and watch that. Apart from that, I don't really know what else to say about this. There is one more thing, actually. Take the disc out of here, place it into a CD player, and you'll hear the soundtrack. And it's a weird soundtrack because on the Dragonfly level, there's an actual song, like with lyrics, vocals and all. And if you play this disc in a CD player, you'll hear that song. A lot of people commend this game for its soundtrack. I think that's fishing for a positive thing to say, because I listened to it and thought, I mean, it's all right, but it's not standout like people are saying. It's all right. It's serviceable. It is. But yeah, if you want to listen to that, either play the game or stick that in a CD player and listen to that music. I will probably put the music in the background to this video as well, just for funsies. What do you reckon? Sound like a good idea? I'll tell you what else sounds like a good idea. Going to play this game yourself. Animorphs Shattered Reality. If anyone knows how I can play Animorphs Know the Secret, the PC game, because DG Voodoo doesn't seem to work on my computer, let me know. I'd love to play that game next. So, what would I rate this game out of 10? Probably 3. I mean, it's bad, but it's got a couple of good points to it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this review of Animorphs Shattered Reality. Go check out the other stuff that I've talked about, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra.